Joining us in the studio this hour, Kelton Hatch from Idaho Fish and Game. And of course, as usual, he's available to take any questions or comments you have. He's got a list of things, too, that we need to run down over the next few minutes. First of all, welcome back.
Hey, thanks. Appreciate it.
There's you're on your agenda. The first thing you have is moose near Wayside. I was actually up in the South Hills over the weekend, and somebody asked me, "Did you see the moose and the babies?" And I thought, what are they talking about? Moose and babies. There are no moose and babies around here. But moose are on the move.
Moose are on the move right now, and the reason that these two yearlings got in trouble over by the wayside is because their mom or the cow moose had kicked them off because she was ready to have a calf this spring, and so yeah, we're starting to see there's a ton of baby deer, pronghorn, calf elk, moose calves that are
Mhm.
on the ground right now. And I guess before I get going much further and talk about this wayside deal, just when you find those animals out there, just leave them where they're at. Um, we get, I mean, we get so many calls this time of year on, oh, I found this baby this and this baby that, and I didn't see anybody around to take care of it, so I picked it up. And the survival, the way these guys wildlife does this is sometimes the parent or the mother doesn't come back only maybe twice a day and nurse, and then they leave them.
Mom's out hunting.
Yeah, mom's
Yeah.
out hunting, out foraging, trying to produce uh, the milk that they need to be able to feed their offspring. And another thing is it keeps the scent down around those areas where they leave their offspring, so that predators can't find it as easy. And so just leave them there, the mother will be back. But what had happened is we had a cow and a bull yearling moose that were down by the wayside, right by Highway 84 and on the road that runs there between Hayburn and Rupert out through there. And they were just they were starting to cause some issues because number one was afraid they was going to get on the interstate or on that main road. They're going out of Hayburn and into Rupert and get hit. And so we were able to go over there. If you look at our Facebook page, there's just a mile of streaming comments on this because people had been seeing them all along the Snake River and people's beet fields and things like that. And so we were able to dart them, and then we loaded them in our horse trailer and we relocated them down here by Salmon Falls Creek Reservoir. And a lot of people have been asking us, well, why did you take them clear over there? Well, number one is we didn't want them to end up in the same spot that they were. And number two, we have a good population of moose in Unit 55, a good population of moose in 54, and we're starting to see a fledgling herd down there in 47. We've been seeing more sightings. And three is they're not going to get in trouble in
There
Unit 47.
aren't a lot of roads down there, and there's a ready supply of water.
Oh, there is, and there's great habitat for them, and they're not going to wander. Hopefully, they don't wander near roads and end up getting whacked. And so, it was kind of uh, we felt it'd be a pretty good place for them. And so, but we're as glad. We appreciate all the help that we got. We got help from all the different police departments over there in the Cassia County area and ISP and those folks. And fortunately, it was successful. One thing that I want to mention is we had another moose that was over in Murtaugh in town, over by the elementary school, just before school got out. And we had some people that were trying to get out of their trucks and get really close to the moose to get pictures. Not a good thing to do. These cows and this time of year are having calves. If they've got a calf in the grass and you go sneaking towards her, she may come sneaking towards you really fast and then run you over. And so they can be really aggressive. This moose ended up not having any offspring with it, but it went to jump a fence, got tangled up, landed on a wheel line, broke the wheel line. The moose was okay, but when people see them, they need to keep their distance. I know everybody wants to get a picture and everybody's got a cell phone with them, but give them a wide berth. Moose can be very aggressive, especially with offspring. Um, in the South Hills, we're starting to see a lot of calves are popping up. People are starting to comment on all the moose they're seeing, and so when you're out there, just be cautious.
The great thing is in the South Hills, you don't drive very fast, so you don't have too many worries about collisions.
Yeah. Well, it just depends on which road. Sometimes it seems like some of those dirt roads become racetracks for people up there recreating, and so that's another thing. I just warn people to slow down because there's a lot of people using the South Hills right now, and if you're up there bahaing around and just enjoying it, be cautious. Just be cautious.
And you bring up people picking up the animals, and I'm thinking about what happened in Yellowstone last year, where the tourists picked up
L-
the little bison
yeah.
and it had to be put down.
Yeah, loaded a baby buffalo up in the back of their car because they thought it was going to freeze. Well, yeah, we're usually a detriment to wildlife, like always, and so managing wildlife isn't the hard part. Managing people is, and so everybody's heart's in the right place when they pick those up. I mean, they really they see this and they think it's struggling. They put human attributes to these animals, well, if it, and they want to take care of it. The best thing to do is let nature take care of them because mama's been doing this for years and she knows exactly what she's doing and they'll take care of
And they
themselves.
have a good coat; they don't freeze to death.
No, they don't. It's a
Yeah.
little different than us sitting out there. Yeah, they'll be a year. A new fawn will be warmer than we would, and so. But just remember that
You have a second item here, and you've abbreviated it. Uh,
on
called
applications. Well, what I
Yeah.
was talking about is the big game applications for trophy species. I mean, trophy species for deer, elk, and antelope are over. And just to tell people, the last day was crazy. We had at our office, we had over right at 1,000 people that come in and applied for controlled hunts. Um, I guess what I'm trying to tell folks is if you're applying for controlled hunts, if you're buying your fishing license, if you're looking for a hunter ed class or any of that stuff to get into, don't wait till the last minute because it seems like everybody else in town does. And our system, we had lines going out the door for a portion of the day.
You
Lots of people
you
applying.
warned about this though a month ago.
We do, and it's just I think it's just human nature. And I must admit I don't get my applications in on the first day, but I don't wait till the last day either because the Friday before Memorial Day, our systems were really struggling because we had everybody trying to buy fishing licenses and getting their applications in before they took off on Memorial Day weekend, and then we had another big push on the 5th, and I'm glad that people are applying and are interested in getting involved in hunting and fishing and things like that. But it's a lot easier on yourself and the system if you get your applications in earlier. But I just thought it was kind of interesting that we ran close to 1,000 people through the office in one day for an
Well, that
application.
traffic going up 93 must have been incredible.
Yeah, it was pretty. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Some days, like right now, our office is like dead. We may get 2 dozen phone calls or maybe 50 phone calls a day, and then we'll have a 30 to 40 people drop in. And you have a day like that you have over 1,000 people drop in, and you get close to 200 phone calls and stuff, which is good. Um, but we've got the next big deadline is our hunter ed courses. Is We had a big push before applications because people wanted to get their kids or first time hunters through the hunter edge course. Well, we ran into the same problem with that. Everybody was calling us trying to get into classes, the last week of May, and applications are due in June. And so it's really hard to get everybody through that. Well, we've got another deadline coming up, opening of opening of deer and elk season. We got a bunch of classes going right now. Our instructors do a lot of classes in the summer, so go online at fishandgame.idaho.gov and get signed up for that hunter ed class if you need it, and start looking right now because it could take a couple months for you to find a class that's going to work with your schedule. And so I'd start looking now. And those classes do fill up fast. We've already had 60 classes in the Magic Valley this spring. There's the online option that you can also take, and we've had close to 20 field days for that. And so just get online and get that taken care of.
Classes, I guess, are important for people who not only novices, but for people who maybe they dad taught them when they were young, but maybe they've been away from it for a while, and it's a good refresher.
Well, it is, and the thing is you can't go wrong with taking a class to better yourself. And these hunter ed classes do just that. If I had a kid, and even if I wasn't a sportsman, I would want my kid to go through hunter's ed just
Mhm.
because it teaches them firearm safety. It teaches them, that the safety is a mechanical device that sometimes fails, and you don't. So the only way a gun can be truly safe is by the direction you're pointing the barrel, and it shows them how to run different actions. Because I guarantee, if you're in Idaho or any of these western states around here, that your kids are going to run into firearms at some time, whether they're at friends' houses, they're a bunch of buddies up in the hills, camping or something. Firearms are a part of life, and so it's good for them in the West. And so people need to learn how to be safe around them, you know, and the hunter education just goes into the ethics and the laws and the rules, and a major portion of it's uh, safety with the firearm.
Well, and there's going to be differences too because between a shotgun and a rifle,
Oh,
obviously.
you bet. There's huge differences, and I mean the way they function, and the way they work, and it these classes typically are instructor led classes is the ones I like to recommend for kids. They're usually between 2.5 to 3 hours a day for 5 days, and then a 3 hour field course on Saturday. Sounds like a big commitment, but I mean, how long does it take you to get a driver's license? We have these kids they go through their driver's ed for 12 weeks, and then they have to put 60 more hours of driving in. And so it's a pretty minimal course. It just gives them the basics where they're going to learn their ethics, I guess you could say. We talk about ethics in our hunter ed, but it's with the people that they hunt with and the people they're around.
We're going to squeeze a caller in here. We've got about a minute before the break, but we'll get the caller's comment or question out and then likely be able to get to it after 9:20. It's 9:18, and caller, you're up next on KLIX with Kelton Hatch.
Martin, I was just wondering, is it a conspiracy true that Dog Creek has got no fish? Because I've gone 10 times and never caught nothing. So there's no fish over there?
We've got fish in Dog Creek. We've planted it. We had a group of people out there fishing yesterday. Some of those they had caught some fish. If it was me at Dog Creek, I would go to the top end away from the docks. It seems like those fish you just walk around the edge, or get a little boat and go to the top end, and it seems like it's been fishing better up there.
Does it help? I mean, I was listening to somebody on a radio show the other day. I sometimes don't listen to KLIX all the time. Ever since I got
Oh, evil.
satellite radio, but about people talking about fish finders, and somebody was actually asking a fellow about, he's a professional bass fisherman, and
Uh-huh.
how do you find the fish in particular areas? And he said, well, it really comes down to experience. After a while, where you can find them.
It's exactly right. I mean, we'll talk to sportsmen all the time in the South Hills about, well, they can't find a deer, but if you look in the right spot, you can find the deer pretty quick and easy because we've got a good population down there. The same goes for fishing, different ponds in different areas, different cover that they use, and so. Um, but the top end of the lake has been fishing about the best.
Okay, we've got more coming up with Kelton Hatch from Idaho Fish and Game. We're at 9:20. And we're at 65. Bill Colley with you too as well on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com. We're joined in the studio by Kelton Hatch this morning from Idaho Fish and Game. It's coming up on 9:23. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com. We're at 64. Also, temperatures will be rising through the weekend up into lower 90s by the beginning of next week, and not much rain in the forecast anytime soon. Weather, a service of Mountain Home Auto Ranch in Mountain Home. Uh, we've got a lot more to talk about. Did we get to this general tags?
I wanted to talk about that a little bit. We kind of beat around the bush on that, but the general tag, we've been getting a lot of phone calls from people saying, well, when can I buy my elk tag? When can I buy my deer tag? Well, you can buy your deer and elk tags for your zone units as soon as our controlled hunt results are out. We will have them out for sure by July 10th. However, I'm guessing they'll be out before that, and that's when we put the deer and elk tags on sale. Um, except for the cap tags. So if you're looking for a cap zone tag for elk, those will go on sale um, on July 10th. we're trying to make this really difficult for everybody. So I'm going to give you another day too. So most your zone tags you can pick up as soon as the controlled hunts. For cap zone tags, you can pick them up on July 10th, unless it's the sawtooth zone. I get frustrated with this, so I'm trying. But the sawtooth zone has been selling out really, really quick. It sells out typically in like an hour to 2 hours. Well, this year they're going to those zone tags for uh, the Sawtooth Zone go on sale at 10 a.m. on July 12th. The first half of those tags, resident tags and non-resident tags, will be sold at vendors. So you can line up at a vendor's shack. I'm guessing we'll have people camping overnight for these tags. And then the other half of those tags will be sold at 1 o'clock online. So if you can't get to a vendor the night before to get in line, then you can sit at home by your computer and try to buy it at 1. Those tags will go fast. I don't know what's going to happen. We're hoping this will work smooth and the system's not going to crash. But the reason we wait to sell our general deer and general elk tags until after the controlled hunt is so that if somebody buys it, if they draw a controlled tag, they don't have to exchange it for their general tag that they have. That way, so make sure, just double check. Uh, the online system doesn't catch it, but if you go to a vendor, they'll tell you whether you drew a controlled hunt before you buy your general tag, and so that's coming down the pipe here pretty quick.
You also wanted to talk today about sage grouse.
You know, I wanted to. We've been getting another lot of questions about what is all the white fence doing out at Brown's Bench or over by Jim Sage or over by the Lost River and some of these different areas that we have. What's going on is there's a long-term research project that's been going on for grazing and sage grouse nesting. And what we've done is we've got rotating plots. It's kind of like we've got radio collared birds across the area, and then they've got some places that they're isolating cattle off of during certain times of the year and studying against where birds are nesting with the cattle and stuff like that to see if there's any difference, whether a rest rotation grazing style will help increase bird production or whether it'll help the livestock industry. It's a joint study with the Idaho Cattle Association, these cattle ranchers in these areas. So when you're out in the desert and you see these white fences and there's a 2-track road, we tried to put gates on all of them, so you can just open the hot wire, drive through, and then close it. Please keep those closed, and that's what's going on. Just kind of wanted to give you an update on why we have those.
I did not actually see any. I forgot where I was in the last couple of weeks. I heard them off in the distance, and because they have such a distinct sound. And I was out doing some photography and heard some noise in the distance, and I tried to see if I could zoom in and find them on the viewfinder, but I couldn't come across them.
So, yeah. Well, we got a lot of noise going on out there right now. You know, you've got the sandhill cranes that are out dancing in fields, and you've got just it's pretty cool right now to be out. This nice warm weather. It's this has been a slow coming spring. It feels like in some ways. You know, we haven't seen those nasty high hot temperatures that sometimes we have
Yeah.
by now, and so it's things are just lush and beautiful. So if you get a chance to get out in the outdoors, get up there and look around because it's really beautiful right now.
I'm trying to, figure out various calls that you wouldn't necessarily hear in other parts of the country. I've been trying to, in some spots, locate any calls I might hear from, what is it, Gadwells?
Yeah.
Because they have the males have such a unique.
Well, and you've got IBIS, and there's quite a few websites that you can go on and download MP3 sounds. And I know of people that go out and they go out early in the morning and use different bird calls to locate different birds. And, there's just a lot of things going on right now.
I was going to say, if you get a chance to listen to them online first, then you get out there, you know what you're hearing.
Well, some people do. They're close enough together, some of the sounds that, the ones that I've heard a lot and I can put a face with, or spot my spotting scope. It's easier for me, but I'm not what you call it. I'm really good at calls. I know what an elk sounds like, when they're whistling and things like that, but I'm not very good with birds.
When you mentioned earlier, you don't want to get too close to the wildlife. This is where a zoom lens, though, comes in handy. If you do hear them, You want to photograph.
Yeah.
If you can zoom in, then you're not going to bother them.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And but with the moose, it's just there's just always that underlying probability the cows can get really aggressive this time of year. Bulls typically get more aggressive later in the fall during rut and stuff, but moose can have a very short fuse.
It's like getting run over, but the car doesn't necessarily stomp on you. The moose does.
Yes, it does.
We've got more coming up with Kelton Hatch from Idaho Fish and Game. We're at 65. It's 9:30. Bill Colley as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. We've been talking a little bit about fishing this morning. We'll talk more about that as well coming up in the next half hour. Our studio guest is Kelton Hatch from Idaho Fish and Game. It's 9:33. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. We're at 67. If you have a comment or question for Kelton on issues related to hunting and fishing, you could give us, or even some of the wildlife we've talked about, which is on the move. Feel free to give us a call at 736-0300, 736-0300. You referenced the fact in the last half hour that it's cooler this spring. And when you talk about fishing, that also changes the nature of how, number one, rivers are running high, streams are running high, but it's
Really high.
cold water.
It is. A lot of people are kind of getting frustrated with the spring with this fishing because it's just like this gentleman that called earlier about Dog Creek. Spring has been slow in coming, and we just haven't had, some of the lakes have been fishing pretty well for bass. We're starting to, I mean, the spawn comes on, it comes on stronger with warmer water, and it was a little bit lackluster in some of our lakes compared to what it has been in years past. The walleye have really never started biting in earnest down at Salmon Falls Creek or Oakley because the water's been a little bit chilly and cold. It's been murky. We're starting to see that change a little bit, and I think we'll continue to see that change the rest of the summer. We still have not planted any fish in the hills in any of our streams. A lot of these low-lying lakes like Dog Creek and Salmon Falls Creek and Oakley and Magic have been getting extra fish because we've got fish in the hatchery that were scheduled to go out a month ago to some of our streams that didn't have a place to go. They're getting too big. We don't have enough feed for them, and so we've been out planting those, trying to hold some of our smaller fish that were scheduled for some of these other lakes that we'll rotate back over and put in these streams later on in the summer. But I mean, for instance, just close to town here, Rock Creek is still boiling. I mean, there's a lot of water coming out of it, and so it'll be a while until we can get those streams planted. Um, but I do anticipate we're starting to get some better reports for some of these other lakes, and so I think fishing will start to pick up. One thing I was going to mention, I had a gentleman the other day says, "Well, you need to talk more about salmon and steelhead." I'll admit right off the bat, I'm not super knowledgeable on salmon and steelhead. I do a little bit of steelhead fishing and things, but I do have a little bit of information. If you're looking for this type of information, one of the easiest things to do is go to our Fish and Game website at fishandgame.idaho.gov. We'll have the fishing reports on there. Right now, spring Chinooks fishing ended on the Clearwater system, and the lock saw will be open for summer Chinook starting June 22nd. I don't think it's going to be very good right then, but and we should have a fairly decent run, but you can find more information on that on our Fish and Game website.
When we talk about fishing, and a lot of people who are expert at it, more so than I am, obviously. I haven't done much of it in 35 years. But in a place like Idaho, you joked one time on air, it's like 4 different states. The fishing we do necessarily here in the valley isn't quite the same as what they might do in the panhandle.
No, it isn't. It's totally different. It's interesting to me. I had never caught a warm water fish. I grew up over in eastern Idaho. Where I grew up was around 5,800 foot in elevation, and I thought the only fish in Idaho was rainbow trout and cutthroat. Over here in the Magic Valley, there's kind of a melting pot of fish. We've got bass and bluegill, and we put tiger muskie in Dog Creek. We've got you know a few largemouth bass in some of the ponds around here, as well as the small. We've got sturgeon, and so there's just a lot of different targets to go after. And so, Dog Creek is one of those ponds that you can catch channel cats, or you can catch a tiger muskie, or you can catch a trout, or you can catch a bass in. And so there's a lot of different, but a lot of the streams up north. I mean, when you fish. A lot of those are warm water fisheries. And then you go to the streams to catch your cold water fish, or your big lakes, and you can catch some of the cold water fish, more your salmonids, your trout, and your kokanee and things like that. But it looks like Anderson. One thing I was going to mention, I forgot to, is looks like Anderson Ranch is starting to catch a few kokanee right now too. And so, uh, you know, and I was also going to jump on these local fisheries. If you're just looking for a place to take your kids, we've actually got a new ADA ramp that we're getting built down at Oster Ones, down at the Hagerman Park ponds. Um, the Filer Kids ponds have been fishing really, really well. We've got all the Oster ponds and Riley Creek ponds and Durkee's Lake. If you're just looking for a place to get your kid out, or just a place to go for yourself and just have an enjoyable afternoon, a lot of these local ponds are fishing really well because of these excess fish, and that's where we've been dumping quite a few of them. And so get out and do some of that. Another thing you can do is we've got our fishing trailer that's going around. And if you go to the Fish and Game website, again, we have the Take Me Fishing trailer, and you can go fishing without a fishing license if you sign up at that trailer. And then we'll have people on hand to loan you fishing poles and have bait and other things like that.
We've got more coming up with Kelton Hatch in just a couple of minutes. We're at 9:39, almost 9:40. It's 66. Bill Colley with you as well. Kelton joins us from Idaho Fish and Game, giving us a monthly update today. And you're listening to News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Just this past weekend, Idaho Fish and Game sponsored a free fishing day, and they'll have some days as well for kids. They do this in the summertime. It's 9:43. If you haven't noticed, the kids are out of school. You can probably hear the noise in your neighborhood, I'm sure. It's 66. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story this morning at News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Also, if you'd like to reach Kelton, if you got a question and got a comment this morning, he's available at 736-0300, 736-0300. Big event statewide this past Saturday.
It was a good event, and we appreciate you letting us come on and talk about it a little bit last week. We had really good turnouts. We had about 150 anglers up there at Haysper, and was around 500 or 600 down at Hagerman State Fish Hatchery. We changed things up down there. We didn't have the fishing in the raceways before, and we got a lot of positive feedback on it because people just were tired of the arm-to-arm combat fishing on the raceways with the kids and stuff like that. And so was able to turn a lot of those bigger fish loose in Riley Pond, and they caught a lot of fish. And it was a good event. We're glad, thanks to all the support. We had a lot of volunteers that showed up down there to help us. A few scout troops, had a lot of donations from Falls Brand and the bread factory down here, Eddie's Bread, I think it is, and there's two or three other places, the Pepsi and those guys that donated a bunch of product for that event. So we just wanted to thank them.
For people, we're talking off air for a minute about fishing, and obviously you have, I think, deeper lakes in northern Idaho than perhaps you have in southern Idaho, right? Deeper lakes.
Well, I don't know whether they're deep. They're different. Most of ours are reservoirs here, irrigation reservoirs, and a lot of those lakes up north are just they're natural lakes, and they don't aren't subject to the drawdown that we have around here, just because they're not used primarily for irrigation.
And one question I had was, if you go fishing and you're up in McCall, or you're all the way up in Ponderay, and if you're sort of new to this, sometimes getting a guide is the approach to take, and a guide could take you out and they're going to walk you through all of this.
And there's guides for everything nowadays. I mean, if you're a first time hunter, we have hunting guides. If they're anglers, the South Fork of the Snake River, or even right here in the Magic Valley, we have sturgeon guides. So there's a lot of different opportunities to learn in other ways. They do cost a little bit more, but another thing you can also learn how to catch fish or try different things is at your local sporting goods shop. You've got a lot of those guys are that they have employed at these places are avid anglers or hunters or shooters, um, and they can give you some good guidelines too. Or call us at the regional office, and we'll do what we can to help you get ready to go.
We have a caller with us, and caller, you're up next. You're on the air at 946 on KLIX. Go ahead.
Hey, I wanted to ask Kelton what the status of the mountain quail population is now, and if there's any active programs to enhance that population.
That's a good question. Mountain quail, it's one of those. We've gone in a lot of areas and looked, tried to locate mountain quail. We've got a really thin population. About 8 or 10 years ago, we had a 4-year study down in the King Hill area that we had actually relocated some mountain quail and put radio collars on them, and there seemed to have been a lot of. I mean, we couldn't come up with a surety, but there was a lot of competition between chuckers and mountain quail for suitable nesting habitat. Chuckers are a little bigger, more aggressive in some of those areas, especially in the dry areas. Um, and we're relocating a lot of those mountain quail. And if you run into one, we just don't have a lot left in Idaho. We every few years it seems like we try to do something if somebody comes up with a new idea, but it's not a super viable population right now.
You talk about tracking birds. I was reading in Ducks Unlimited that there was a time when obviously you would try to tag birds and then you would try to track their behavior, but you only actually can, out of the number of birds you tag, the percentage you actually have been able to, over history, to track is pretty small. But since we got into satellites, and you can now chip an animal, it's a lot more easy to really track what they
Well,
do.
it's pretty phenomenal. Some of these satellite collars, these birds that would release the mountain quail, we had like 140 callers out, and you had to find each of their tones, and it's like tuning in a radio and then find them, and then the ones that had died, you were tracking them down, trying to find them, and a lot of times you'd find them in a bottom of a den somewhere. These little radio collars, and they had a shorter life. Now they're coming out with a lot of new technology. We've got some backpack uh, rate. GPS collars that we're putting on sage grouse and stuff like that that actually recharge their solar. They shut off at night. They come online during the day. They give us hourly or daily locations, and so we're gaining a lot more information. We haven't done that with the mountain quail just because we just don't have a viable enough population, and I'm sure that that's something that will probably happen again when we get the funding to do something like that.
The other thing we haven't spent a lot of time on, I think, in the last several months is invasive species. And I was watching a program a few weeks ago about the problems they've had in Yellowstone with some of the invasive species that and they actually think they're going to be able to remedy this. It's not easy. Do we have any serious issues in Idaho like
Oh,
that?
huge, huge problems. One of our biggest challenges that we're facing right now is Medusa head rye, and that's out in the Bennetts. It's spread so far across there that we've lost. It becomes a monoculture. It chokes out all the other plants. It actually, believe it or not, it chokes out cheatgrass, and so it's pretty aggressive. I
Which normally
mean,
you get in your shoes.
and so but we've worked with the BLM. They've actually gone out and ran some test plots using different spray methods, and have been able to kill it, and then gone back in and reseeded it um, with more native grasses. One of the problems is just getting rid of the 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 extra seed that the other plants are leaving, and then the wind blows it and translocates it over your new seeded areas sometimes. And so, but it's something that we are really working on. Um, and there's different plants in all ports of Idaho that we're struggling with, and that's just one of the things we fight around here.
I know that, in fact, a lot of this we tend to believe. For instance, with the fish in Yellowstone, that was likely somebody dumping them. But sometimes even nature. Years ago, I remember talking to a guy who was running an environmental science office, and he told me that eastern equine encephalitis had often been carried on really large storms because at one time it was only endemic to like the southeast. And then he said what would happen is you'd have these big storms and they carried the mosquitoes that were carrying the disease, and it ended up becoming almost continent wide. It was one theory they had. And so sometimes you get an invasive species, it's just something that blows in here.
And that's exactly right. We get enough breeze in the Magic Valley that it can carry seed pods quite a ways, and so there's just a lot of different issues that go on with that type of stuff, and it's some of them are just sometimes you just try to almost close your eyes and not think about it because you just don't know how to even start handling it. And I know BLM and the Forest Service work really hard on a lot of these different. That's one thing about the department. We mostly manage the wildlife, where the Forest Service, the federal agencies, manage the wildlands, but we do a lot of co-product projects with them, and I think they're trying to do their best. I mean, you just look at the juniper. Abatement programs that we have down in around City of Rocks and down in the South Hills and some of those areas. I mean, it takes them years to get those through to be able to get projects, and it's amazing how much more juniper is here today than was around here 50 or 100 years ago. And it's almost an invasive species itself, where it goes in and it chokes out all your forbs and your sagebrush and everything else on side hills as juniper uh, patches continue to grow larger and larger. And I know that's a major effort right now by the BLM to open up some of that areas to allow more forbs and more sagebrush for our sagebrush dependent animals to have.
And sometimes, though, it's just an appeal to the public as well, because with the Japanese yew, I think that up until a couple of years ago, a lot of people didn't understand the damage that was going to do. And maybe now, because of the publicity, people are saying, well, I'll get rid of it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of classes that are coming online. I've been asked to talk at a couple different programs on wildlife friendly plants, and it's mostly stems from Japanese yew, you know, and there's always going to be little things like that that pop up, and um, but as long as people are willing to be proactive, and it's I'm trying to remember, it's Dyer's Woad down in southeastern Idaho, out of the Preston area. They used to raise this plant as a source of dye to dye the wool from the bands of sheep down there, and you can see where this plant has gone in, and it covers side hills, and it follows uh, UTV and ATV tracks because it is easily attached to wheels and machinery, and then it just follows those roads up. And they've had a lot of different programs down there. They brought in different beetles and things like that to help remedy that. I know that a lot of our ag services around here are really proactive with thistles and things like that, where they bring in different beetles and try to bring in natural enemies to that plant in there to feed on it to help reduce the population. And so there's a lot of different things, and as technology continues to move forward, hopefully we can get some of these different invasive species taken care of.
And on a more pleasant note, this time of year, you do start having the days for the kids, the fishing days.
We do, and I can't believe I did not bring my little handout to you.
I bet it's on the website,
It is.
though.
It's on the Fish and Game website. That's one thing I always like to really push. Summer, I love winter, don't get me wrong, and there's lots of things to do in the winter. But get your kids out over the summer months and go do a little fishing somewhere. If you don't have the technology or the know-how to do it, come and join and go on one of our fishing trailer events. We have fishing trailer events all over the region. We're going to be at Oster 1 on the 17th. So if you want to come down there, you can just sign up. We'll have staff on hand. They can help you learn the basics to fishing. I was going to tell you something interesting to me. We do these on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Which days do you think is our busiest day?
It's counterintuitive, but it's got to be Wednesday.
It is. It's Wednesday. It doesn't seem like it would be, but we have a lot of mothers that bring their kids down and take them fishing because they were taught to go fishing by their fathers or their grandparents, and they want their kids to be introduced to that. And they're so busy with baseball and softball, and everybody's chasing the ball around on the weekends. That the Wednesdays are typically our big days, but we've got that one on the first. Um, then we'll have another one at Durkee's Lake on the 21st. So that's right here in town. And then we'll be at the Castle Rock State Park out by Albion down in that area on the 24th. And so go to our Fish and Game website, click on the Take Me Fishing trailer, and you can find those different areas we'll be fishing in.
I thought that Saturdays they're all over at Costco getting in my way.
I'm not telling you the day I go because there's not very many people there. So
you told me once off air,
yeah.
and I started to realize that's the time to go.
It is.
Summertime though, on a Saturday, you're going to have a long wait when you check out.
Yeah. There's just a lot of other funner things that you can be doing in the middle of the day on Saturday.
We got about a minute left. Did I forget anything today?
You did not. Just telling people if you've got a student or somebody that wants to take a hunter ed class, start looking right now. We'll have a bunch of classes coming online in the next few weeks, or go online and do the online course and get ready for a field day. That way you won't be rushed. There's one thing that I can't stand for myself is to create more stress for myself. And creating more stress for myself typically means procrastinating. Don't create more stress for yourself. Get signed up for a hunter ed class now if you need one. That way, when hunting season comes around, you don't have to worry about it. You just have to worry about your food and figuring out where you're going to go because you've already got your hunter ed course taken care of.
And we should point out too, when you mentioned the website, do you have the address off the top of your head?
I do. It's at fishandgame.idaho.gov. Lots of information on there. We'll have all the for folks that are hardcore fishermen. You just click on there and it shows you when we stock all the lakes. It gives you a stocking, so you know when the fish are going to hit the water. And so you can kind of plan your schedule around getting out there and going fishing that week when the fish are, we've got a new truckload of fish or all the different events that are going on. And so just use that as a tool. We also have our web page, our Facebook page, and that's Fish and Game Magic Valley. Run a lot of different news on that too.
We'll see you in a month, if not sooner.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Kelton Hatch joining us today from Idaho Fish and Game, coming up on 9:58. Also news at 10 o'clock this morning from Fox. Rush Limbaugh's program following the news. Sean Hannity's show at 1 o'clock this afternoon. Glenn Beck at 4. And Dave Ramsey from 7 until 10 o'clock tonight. Also tomorrow we're talking firearms just after 9 o'clock news right here on KLIX. And God willing, if the creek don't rise, I'll be back tomorrow morning just after 8 o'clock.